Is dat van de virtuele?
Yeah. Yep.
De niet voorzitten. Hè?
Hello, everyone. We're about to start the event. This is the Overweb Meetup in Ghent, Belgium. We're super excited to be here. This meetup was organized by David Diverseri, and we are bringing people into the room right now. My name is David Benjamin. Super excited for this. Glad you're able to tune in. So just hold on a little bit. Let's see. Just gonna do a little sharing. How do I get this to Messenger?
Where do you want me to sit?
Wherever you would like to sit.
Good evening, everyone. Hello. Thank you. Thank you for all for joining us tonight at the next generation of innovation. My name is David. For me, the innovation started when I read the white paper of Satoshi Nakamoto in 2015. We all know about Bitcoin, we all know about cryptocurrencies, we all know about a little bit about blockchain. And during that period of time, I met other people in the space of IoT, AR and VR, and now we're coming to this crossroad where the space has even gotten bigger. And our first speaker of tonight, the reason why we're all here today, I remember our first conversation that was May 2018. We were sitting in Ghent, actually in the Gaslet, and eating chicken tandoori. We were very spicy. I remember that. But the conversation was even more spicier because he talked to me in like an alien language I really could resonate to. And that's why we're all actually here today to hear beautiful speakers. We have an amazing lineup for you guys ready. No further ado, I would like to introduce to you the man of the evening, the CEO of Bridget, V. Benjamin. Oh my goodness.
Well, first of all, thank you all for being here. David, thank you so much for bringing together this amazing group of people. Hello, Emily. Emily just joined our team about a month ago. Sam is here as well. And Ruben, thanks for putting together this room and just hosting us here. It looks like it's perfect. Andy, thank you for introducing me to David. And yeah, really, that was a catalyst for this as well. Rob, thank you for pointing out to me that some of the ideas that I had were actually ideas that someone else had 50 years ago named Ted Nelson. So we're all, standing on the shoulders of giants. I'm super honored and happy to be here sharing with you. I'm going to talk a little bit about our vision for what we're calling the overweb. And we see it as kind of the next generation internet or part of the next generation internet. There's a lot of different aspects to the next generation internet. And if Sam is ready, we'll go ahead and
Next slide.
get it started. So let's play. No, you can keep it.
All right.
Well, why don't I just,
I think that was the wrong kind of play that he pushed.
Yeah,
could we,
Push escape and then go to the little thing.
that's what I'm saying.
Stay on the not really total, stay on the.
okay.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do. We're just gonna take a minute for this to load up again.
This always happens,
Yeah,
Okay, so there's a new kind of
it's not the gunplay mode. It's all right. I mean, I think I'm gonna click through for you.
Yeah,
So.
Yeah, certainly. They have made this.
okay,
Try it again. Fingers crossed. We're here. You see the slideshow? Yeah. Okay.
no, okay, well. Anyway, we won the Next Generation Internet Award. We're really honored to be honored by this flagship program of the EU that's looking to create an inclusive, sustainable, trustworthy, and resilient internet. And this is a video that we put together for that. And the real big question here is, well, what is the overweb? And we're gonna talk a little bit about that and what's wrong with the existing internet and what we can do about it. So the internet as it is right now, it lacks transparency and trust. I'm sure most of you are aware of that. But what's really interesting is why that is. So the dominant monetization strategy of the internet is advertising. And what that leads to is commercial sites not wanting to use external links. They don't use external links, so they want to keep you on that site so they can keep the advertising coming. But the problem with that is it creates knowledge silos. So if you go to a news site in the US, and I don't know about necessarily the news sites here, but on the news sites in the United States, they rarely have external links. Even if they cite a study, they don't usually have a link to that. So we lack context. And we're in a situation where search, ads, and content all lack context. Now, the problem with that is it opens the door for a lot of things that we don't like. Clickbait, fake news, many of the things like that. Paid placement in search results, so that you see things that people want you to see, but they aren't necessarily the most relevant things. What that leads to overall is that people don't know what to believe.
It also says Google will die.
Is that what you saw?
Yeah, that's what I saw on the notes.
Oh, you saw where it said that people.
When Britain will replace that, exactly.
Okay. We have a wild, audacious goal.
Yeah.
I mean, just like a big one. And that is for ubiquitous content. So this is the idea that no matter where you are, whether it's online, in the digital world, or in the physical world, that you can see deep layered context. You can go as deep as you want on that particular item that you're looking at. And what does that require? So if we're gonna do that, it means that we're gonna need to connect the world's publicly available information. We're gonna need to connect online ideas to pieces of files, to virtual objects, to physical objects, to geolocations, to IoT, to potentially to DLT entries. We need to connect it all up. And I have a question right there. I mean, I don't know if it's true or not, but I just have a sense that one of the next big leaps for humanity is connecting the information. I mean, if you think about knowledge, one bit of our knowledge might be the word, what does the word knowledge mean, right? And then another one might be what the word power means. Okay, so you think of those independently, what do you know? Then if you say, well, let's connect those two and say knowledge is power, it adds a whole nother set of meaning. You get context. The connection between information is what makes it powerful. That's what neuroscientists are finding. That's what makes our brains so powerful. Our brains have 200 trillion neurons and 1,000 connections, each one, 1,000 synapses for each one. With our internet, we have 1 or 2 external links per page. It's pathetic. That's one. So where do we start with something like that? We're bringing this concept of the overweb. So the overweb, when I think about it in the long term, the page source, so the HTML, the CSS, the JavaScript that the page author creates that currently creates the entirety of the page experience. Well, that's not quite true. It's a little bit more than that. I mean, you can have extensions that can change the page experience as well, but generally, if the person who created the page puts a comment block on the bottom, then you can make comments. If they put a form in the middle of it, then you can submit a form. If it's a Facebook page, then you can do all the things that are associated with that. You can't generally do more than that, than what's on the page source. But what I'm imagining is that in the future, the page source is simply the contextual footprint for a whole universe of information, interactions, and experiences that emanate from different pieces of the page. And that those are intertwined with the worlds from other pages and potentially from virtual objects in other worlds and from geolocations. Like from this room, you could have many, many different conversations and interactions and experiences that come from it. So it's this notion that this piece, the page source, it just provides the starting point. It's like a timeless set of interactions and information and other things that can start from there. So that's where it could go, right? Where it is now, or at least where we're starting, is a trust layer on top of the existing web. So we are Bridget, helping, we're providing a infrastructure that will enable people to create semantic bridges. And when you do that, of course, you're going to own and control your data. Of course, you're going to earn money for the value that you create. And what does that enable? Well, that enables rapid discovery of information, of trustworthy information. It also allows 360-degree context for any idea on the web. So how do we do that? Well, we're looking to create next generation internet protocols. The two that we're in particular focused on right now, there's a distributed search and discovery protocol that makes the internet more like the human brain. Remember how I said the brain is extremely connected with 1,000 synapses per neuron? We want to make the web that way. So any idea on the web could have hundreds, if not thousands, of other ideas connected to it. And the way it would connect is we would connect from a piece of content on one page to a piece of content on another page. And we give it a relationship. Actually, we wouldn't give it, the people would give it, because the people are creating this distributed search index. So it could be a supporting bridge, it could be a refuting bridge, and we'll track metadata and track the traffic. So we'll know how many people cross the bridge, we'll know how many people upvote the bridge. Collectively, once we have a lot of bridges in any topic area, we have an internet of ideas. So we're moving from an internet of knowledge silos to an internet of ideas. The overweb protocol. So the overweb protocol is this notion that we have a browser overlay. So that means that it's always on. It doesn't matter what site you go on, it's always there. So browser overlay is attention triggered. So as you move your attention on the screen, and it could be your cursor if you're on a desktop or laptop, it could be mobile, I mean your finger if it's mobile. In the future, it could be line of sight with a head-mounted display. As you move your attention on the palette, whether it's the screen or a virtual world, If something's near your attention, it lights up. Then if you rest your attention on one of those things, it brings up all the related information. So it could be bridges, it could be notes, it could be conversations, it could be collaboration requests. It could be just about anything that you want it to be, but we're starting with bridges. Bridges, I feel, are the most fundamental thing. This is kind of like, so the web has, well, the brain has synapses, the web has links, social media has connections, and the overweb has bridges. I mean, it's all about the connections. We're creating a ecosystem that has a number of different actors in it. So you have people that are browsing, people that are building bridges, brands and advocates can be here as well, advertisers can be here as well, network conveners and enterprise as well. So just for example, for people who are browsing, we help them identify what's real and what's not, and help them help themselves so they learn and strengthen their ability to do so, to identify false news and misinformation themselves. For people building bridges, an income source, reputation. For brands, we help bring traffic, greater visibility, a better understanding of where people are focusing on their page, and also pay them commissions based on referrals and potentially ads that are served off their page. Now, here's the thing about advertising. I hate advertising. Who gets annoyed about advertising sometimes? Yeah. Okay. In our system, advertising is by default off. So that's one thing that makes it different. Then if you turn it on, then you're eligible for daily, weekly, and monthly giveaways. And then the other thing about it is our advertising does not require any tracking of you. So we don't need to know what websites you took to get here. We don't need to know what you put in your shopping cart. We don't need to know what you said in the hallway because a voice assistant like Alexa or one of these other things was listening. We don't need to know any of that because you know what? We're focused on your attention. That's how it should be. An advertisement should support your attention. So if you're focusing your attention here, let me serve you an ad directly related to this thing you're looking at. I don't need to capture your attention. I don't need to take you away and say, oh, here's something that you were looking at before. Let me just give you an ad that's related to what you're looking at. And if to do that, I don't need to track you at all. I don't need to know your activity. It's different. Network conveners, we help them gather people. Enterprise, effortless collaboration, and really faster time to insight. So I'm really proud of this slide, just because I think it's really important to have diversity. And the thing that diversity does is it allows us to bring different ideas to the table and create a synthesis that can be better than any of the single ideas that are on the table by themselves. And this is one of the most diverse teams that I've ever worked on, and it's also one of the most diverse teams in the blockchain space, as far as I know. And I'll just talk about a couple of them. So our CEO helped Apple launch iTunes, and he helped with Genentech and Nokia. He's done a lot of hacking, including some with DARPA and US Navy Research Center. Zinette is a PhD from Stanford in learning science and technology design. She teaches master's and PhD students, and she has a couple really interesting jobs as well as director of learning at YOL, which is bringing mindfulness into corporations. Patrick is an MBA from Michigan. He was undergrad UT in MS, management science, so it really fits in well with what we're doing. Mark worked with Unify and Uplift to gather hundreds of thousands of people together in synchronized activities, mindfulness activities. Hitesh has a $600 million exit. Tracy's a PhD from Berkeley. She founded something called the Climate Mapping app, and she's a PhD in geography. So it really fits well with what we're doing. And yeah, I've done a little bit of coding in the past, worked on one of the first intranets Also helped with one of the first yield management systems at Hertz. And I have an award-winning AR book, which Andy knows about and David knows about. So got 6 patent pendings and also a Stanford graduate. So you're probably thinking, well, what are the revenue streams for a business like this? I mean, it sounds great, but if you can't make money, then it doesn't really go anywhere, right? Well, it's really interesting because, first of all, we're building something entirely new, right? So, it's a little bit of a guesswork, but as it turns out, when you're adding a new layer on top of the internet, there's potentially a lot of different opportunities. And in this case, we're looking at membership fees. So there would be a free way to use it, especially if you're putting all your information into the public. But if you want to do private stuff, then you have to pay. And so that's like an enterprise. They have teams, or there's an individual that just wants to create some different bridges and connections and notes and stuff, and they want to keep that to themselves. Well, they would have to pay. We're going to also have premium fees for branded content. We'll have bridge construction services. So if a company wants to hire us, we'd be happy to make a constellation of bridges that could help draw more traffic to their site and help their people engage more deeply with their content. We'll be moving to more of a transaction fee in a talent and content marketplace. And what that means is later down the line, we're not going to be doing the services. Other people in the ecosystem will be offering the services. We'll just take a small transaction fee. We'll also have a content marketplace. So if you create a lot of really cool bridges that a lot of people want to use, well, they have a lot of residual value because they're going to have more people coming to them and more people upvoting them. You're going to be compensated for those. But you might say, you know what? I'm willing to put these up on the market and sell them. So we'll take the transaction fee for that. We'll offer pay-per-click advertising and potentially product placement commissions for companies that have aligned products. We would place their products. And then down the line, data set rentals to train AI. Because as it turns out, if we get a lot of people to create a lot of bridges, it actually starts to look like probably the best approximation of the collective consciousness, or at least the intentional collective consciousness. So I think that there's going to be, there's going to be a lot of possibility to train artificial intelligence. And of course, we would do that in a socially responsible way. We're not trying to do anything untoward. Then finally, licensing bridge data to apps, search engines, chatbots, all that is a possibility as well. Right now, just in case there's anyone of me's in the room, we just opened up a fundraising round. We're 5,000 into it. That 5,000 allowed us to come here to Europe. We got it 2 days before my plane flight. For the Next Generation Internet Awards flew us out, but of course I needed some money to be able to do travel to come here and see you all. So it was really great to get that. But anyway, we're just doing a small pre-seed round, and where we're at right now, we're mid-alpha. We've got a browser overlay 6 SDK, and got 6 patents pending. Next Generation Internet, a lot of traction there. A key patent has been green-lighted with no prior art issues. Got a team of 25, Emily, Sam, and 22 other people that believe in this vision, that we can make an internet that's more inclusive, sustainable, resilient, and trustworthy. And so I think that's what I wanted to just tell you all about my project. And I think from here, my thought is that we've got a great set of speakers, and people are doing some really amazing projects. And I'm hoping that this can be really a cauldron of collaboration, that people will have conversations here after the presentation, after the panel, and come up with some ideas about how they might work together. And I'm totally open to working. So if you working together, if anyone wants to have a conversation afterwards, please come up and say hello. So
Our
who's
next
next?
speaker is my good friend Rob.
Okay.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. Thank you for being here.
I put together the team.
Yes, you did.
From coffee meetings, in the Mookapal in Ghent towards ideas about devices that connect with each other. The Internet of Things, not only people are online, but also indeed devices. Rob van Kranenburg is the founder of Council, and of course IoT Day coming up. And when was it again, Rob? April?
April 9.
April 9. So IoT Day, it's a worldwide event. And no further ado, Rob van Kranenburg. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I haven't said anything yet, but it's quite interesting because, so of course, if you talk Dutch, you realize I'm Dutch, but I live in Ghent. So I've been living in Ghent for 25 years now, and so when David asked me about this meetup, it was interesting because I actually put together and I'm part of the team Agile Move, the Next Generation Internet Project, that gave the award. and sort of, and it was interesting and funny because we got in conversation a bit beyond that through Sudha, I think Sudha Yamte from Stanford and then we got to talk about Ted Nelson and taxonomy, because that's where I come from back in the 80s and the 90s. So very quickly, just want to show three things. So this, so I run the Internet of Things Ghent meetup. So I also put this this event on it, and I've seen some people from the meetup. So we run that meetup basically every 2 months, 3 months, so here in Ghent. If you're interested in it, mail me, let me know. Find me on Twitter or LinkedIn, and then we can set up meetup. I think it's been running for about 4, 5, 6 years now, and it's about 700 people on the list. But I think normally some 3, 4, 5 people meet and we just talk about IoT. Then I also set up Council, which is the Internet of Things.eu. I set it up in 2009, and it has about 400 experts, IT experts, and these are real experts. And we're just collaborating on the list. And I'm not advertising it too much. Of course, if you're really into this, you can also find me on Twitter or LinkedIn, send me a mail, and I can put you on Council easily. There's no money involved. It's just basically a mailing list where we share information and indeed build this kind of collective intelligence. That we do that. We're very old school, so we do it on a mailing list. Somebody wanted a Telegram, we set up a Telegram, nobody does anything on the Telegram. And then, so about 2010, I also thought we need to get up some more public debate about this Internet of Things, because as I will quickly show also in a moment, but basically all of you here know, it's pretty serious. It's a serious operation. It used to be like a back-end automation operation, supply chain, but it now boils down to basically tracking every object on the planet, tracing it, attaching some kind of virtual entity to it, and then running the virtual entity instead of the object or the people. So that's going to be so. It's pretty serious, and it's happening as we speak. It's been happening for about 50, 60 years under different names: ambient intelligence, ubiquitous computing, pervasive computing. Now it's called Internet of Things. Cisco is trying to make it Internet of Everything. Every month or so I go on Wikipedia page and try to see if Cisco has managed to add Internet, aka Internet of Everything, to the lemma Internet of Things. Because that's what they try to do, and then I take it off. But they try. Because the Internet of Things is a good neutral term, and I think we sort of need it. And basically, Internet of Everything is a kind of Cisco Qualcomm term, and it's really serious. These are really serious things. You can conversations around the neutral terms possible. So 2010, I set up the IoT Day. That's this year is about Mark Weiser. Well, basically, it's about Internet of Things, but we celebrate Mark Weiser, one of the persons who built the kind of mental imaginary around the Internet of Things with this great text from 1991. Things computing for the computer for the 21st century. Really, you should all, if you have some time, read it. It's really fantastic how it sort of foreshadows all the things that are happening. And it's interesting to see. So this is about getting a public conversation going. So last year there were about 60 events across the planet, and basically it's about going to lunch with somebody. So if you go to lunch with somebody, talk about IoT, you upload that, you add your event, and some people make big seminars. Other people just go for dinner and sort of blog about that. So the day is April 9, and on the day it's a massive media event. All the big guys are coming from IBM and Siemens, so they're all there, and trying to sort of create some value around it. The interesting thing is that this year we have already 16 events all across the planet, but also mainly now, or a lot, like 5 or 6 coming out of Africa. So lately, a number of African IoT people have joined Council, and they're setting up all kinds of events in Lagos, in Ghana, and here. So we're seeing that IoT, because of the extreme cheapness of the hardware, the cheapness of the infrastructure now, you can upload everything, the cloud is basically for free, so all these things. These are bad things in a way, but they're all happening. We can see that this is going massively, spreading around massively in places. So what I'll quickly do is I'll try to now show a presentation I did 2 weeks ago here in Ghent for the DSP Valley. This is the valley in Flanders, the technology valley. So basically, quickly about some trends.
You might want to switch off your Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
No, switch off your Wi-Fi.
Yeah, but it's very
On the
small.
upper right. There you go.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
good.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna navigate. Yes. So quickly, so Internet of Things, what is it? Internet of Things is basically linking up the networks. So you have a body area network where you have your wearables. You have a local area network where you have your home. You have a wide area network where you have your car, and a very wide area network where you have the smart city. So basically, if you look at what Google has been doing for the past 20 years, so Google, you must remember, is like Finsurf, Bob Kahn. They wrote about no-bots in 1988. Finsurf did the protocol, TCP/IP, passed on the packet, wrote the virus, and then he joined Google in 2005. So this is really a very tight sort of circle. And the idea was always Alphabet, and Google was kind of a use case for the search engine. And sort of, if you look at what Google has been doing, they've got a glass and a lens for the wearable space. They had a power meter, didn't really work, so they bought Nest for $2 billion, $3 billion, and so I think it's 2 or 3 years ago. So I go home, sync all my data from the glass and the lens into the Nest, so the home knows how I feel. Then I go into my car. They have a car. They're in 3 out of 5 automotive associations. They're in Gmail and YouTube, so you can never ever own or lease or buy a car that does not have Google in it. Google will always be in that car. It will be the car, the component, the media system, the software, it will be in the car. And in the city, it's been trying to move into the city by basically being in every library, every school, every open data initiative, anything that they could sort of in a public way support. So Google is trying to link up the networks by occupying the gateways. And all their products are gateways, linking up one network to the other. So that's basically the big vision to get the big sort of Google Now. And this will work to a certain extent. And of course, Apple is building its ecosystem. So we see these like 3, 4, 5 huge ecosystems on the planet now. And so this will basically also work because I, as an end user, I'm not going to pay a set of people for my sort of health data, another set of people for my home data, another set of people for my mobility, and another set of people from sort of what's being left of the smart city. So that's basically not going to Hopefully it's coming back, yes. Do some magic here.
Magic, yeah.
Magic also, magic works. Magic works. Yeah, I think it's the.
Unplug it, unplug it.
I think so, okay.
Okay, that's looking better.
If it's not working, I'll try to quickly try to pull it.
Oh.
Good. Okay, so I'll move slowly. So basically, there's a nice term. It's called extelligence, and it has a specific meaning. But basically, it's a kind of complicity. It's a combination of complexity and simplicity, and it has to deal with this idea that we're outsourcing so much to the outside world that we might speak now about a combination of extelligence and intelligence and extelligence. And this is where basically all the systems are going. So this we may say it's China. 5 years ago, 3 years ago, we went to Vivian Balakrishnan, who was then Minister of Smart Nation, and we tried to sell Singapore this model, but they're already building it, of course. So the idea is to have your own device layer. So you move away from TCP/IP, where you spend 50% of your time trying to make it secure, and it's basically insecure. So you have to move your system to a kind of device layer where you own that device. And then you run it through all the networks, the body, the home, the car, and the city. You can actually get security as a service. And you get sort of, this is how China is now operating. So it's keeping all its value layers within the same bubble. Now we think that something's happening here, of course. Flanders has to move very, very rapidly. We see all kinds of strange opinions of people who have no clue about these things. And if you have health issues, you can actually build whole hotspots and you build cold spots. But we have to build some hotspots here. And because if we don't build these hotspots, these 5G hotspots, you're going to miss out on all the vertical application base layers that are building sort of on top of it. So as a moment, as we speak, Uber is building their strategy for having autonomous vehicles in 2030. They're buying houses, they're buying lentil poles, they're going to all intersections, buying the intersections in order to beam the 5G at the autonomous cars, because autonomous cars are one of the key use cases for 5G, to roll it out. So I have some friends and they're sort of, they made all these kinds of calculations, and basically the idea is to rethink what a smart society is or could be, to see also the internet as a kind of historical moment, and to rethink industrial internet, consumer internet from this kind of 5G space where you can also own the infrastructure and you also own the protocols in these infrastructures. So then the three big use cases, it's all coming, it's happening very fast. So you've got the broadband, of course we've got mobile broadband, which is use case number one, download times 1,000 times faster, so these things. But then you have the gaming, the AR and the VR running on it. You have the ultra low latency, so this is where the surgeons are going to do operations in Paris, operating on somebody in Shanghai, 1 millisecond latency. So that this is all coming. This is a massive, massive, massive opportunity. Of course, it needs to be contextualized with a lot of stakeholders, but this is an opportunity that you basically cannot miss. Because basically, we're in the last sort of moment of what we think is kind of normal. Because what we have done, turn the world, turn goods and peoples and interactions, situations into sets of properties. Then having these sets of properties run as virtual entities in our reference architectures, in our machines, in our platforms. Then play back these entities now to no longer the real objects, the real persons, the real interactions, but to virtual situations, has created a kind of extra that is now running in all our interactions. So we are in the last moment where we as humans can maybe, as a full human have some kind of a full human agency, because already this is now becoming a bit blurred. So if you don't understand the real deep nature of this change, you are going to basically have to have the choice of living in two systems. One is GAFA, where we live in, which is basically surveillance capitalism, and all your data are in the hands, they're no longer in the hands of my government. So I am a Dutch citizen, I pay taxes in Holland, live in Belgium, I pay my taxes for the city in Belgium, of course, too. It's all, I have two accountants, two countries. But I still pay taxes to a country that basically has no more agency over anything. So there's no more agency over law, comes out of Brussels. There's no more agency over money, it's euros. There's no more agency over its instruments, they privatize them. And now they also don't hold my data. So at some point I'm going to say, and I'm a good citizen. I love to pay 50%, 60% of my money and have good services at any time. I'm not taking this into the last news or the Telegraaf and say, people, actually, these systems are just running in the 8 o'clock news. They have no more agency. It's basically already gone. The emperor's clothes are shining through sort of every moment we speak. And there's so many things that are trying to sort of go into this void. So we need to work together to keep the last public agency alive in the next iteration, to keep also this system in a good public inclusive way. So then what is happening, we see these shifts, and we see the shift also in what we heard from Devine. We see a shift from customer relation management to what Doc Searles calls vendor relation management, which means that I, as a person, I'm going to expose myself as a set of properties, and service providers are going to come to me and say, oh, this is interesting, you're an interesting person, this is interesting. And this is also underlying the way of the thinking of the overweb, where it's actually you exposing your bridges, and then people can come and sort of build on these bridges. So this is also happening as we speak. It's a massive, needs a massive change set, because if we talk to a lot of companies are still in the mode of, I got this offering, how am I going to get this offering in the market, and so that. But actually, this is already gone. It's no longer really working. So if you don't have this shift, you'll be really in trouble, because one of the things that we see happening at this moment is the dynamic pricing. I just finished a project with Unilever and Siemens and Durst. It was also a European project called Take It Smart. And it was about item level tagging with smart tags. And this means that we will go sort of within 5 to 10 years to a situation where this badge, which is still a badge of, let's say, 1,000 to 10,000 items, will become unique. And it has to become unique because the industry wants to know where every item is at all moment in time across the entire value chain. As that it will happen, what is happening already offline, that if we take a flight to Paris, we all pay a different price, because our algorithms are in the hands of commercial entities selling this to eBay, selling this to eBooker, selling this to the hotel sort of business, where with no public agency over these, and we don't seem to mind. I don't see a lot of people protesting about this on the news or on television. We all seem to accept that everything we buy online, we get a price, and we assume that that's a correct price. But if you look at the back end of an eBay transaction, you actually see it fluctuating in real time. So what you buy at 3, may be a different price than what you buy at 3. I don't know. How can I know that? If I just pay the price, we all pay the price. Now, if this goes offline, and it will go offline, it means that there'll be no more fixed pricing within 5 to 10 years. You just go into a supermarket, if there's still a supermarket, you put your phone to a package of coffee, you will get your price. The person next to me will get her or his or their price. Now, I think we're trying to build a quick app with friends, how we can then swap, so that because I think that's going to be a big platform to actually swap. Because if I have a lot of Facebook friends, I'm going to pay less, and if I have no Facebook friends, I'm going to pay a lot of money. Now, by this time, this environment will be so wired that they'll probably also know that I'm going to die within 3 years, which means they're going to squeeze everything they can. So probably within 3 years, my price will go up. Now, this is also the end, I would say, of society as we know it, because it means that all the social institutional actors that we know that are playing now in government and institutions and unions are basically, which are already having trouble legitimizing themselves, they will be straight out of business because it will just be a relationship between me and that item. I don't even have to expose myself to that item because by that time, the facial recognition, the gait recognition, and all the things that are happening at the moment in this new classification that just got accepted with no comments because they didn't advertise it anywhere but on their own homepage, which is called Coalition, is mapping everyday life. So if you have what you have here is everyday life, and it's behavior in everyday life. And Coalition, which is a group of standard group people, sort of companies, also Fujitsu, has created a kind of standard, and this will be embedded in devices and applications and in all kinds of services. And this means that they've got tying my shoelace with my right hand. So they got that mapped as a number. It's number 400, 4,341. Combing my hair, or like brushing my teeth with my right hand, there's a number for it somewhere because the mirror is going to sort of recognize it. And if they recognize it, I use my right hand or my left hand. So on. It's happening as we speak. So what we will see very quickly is all these things converging. So we get this dynamic pricing, we get mapping behavior in services. I think at this moment in time, 24% of all Americans have an Alexa or Google Home in their home, voice in the home, and it's rising rapidly. So with the millennials always on their sort of devices, sort of then what we have at the moment is the criticism that we have of the Chinese social credit system, which is using behavior as markers for identity. We basically also have ourselves. We have ourselves already because the behavior is mapped, the dynamic pricing is not in public hands, and basically these services are coming from commercial actors that are surveilling us as a way of building new services. So the fight is on identity management. So whoever gets the name identities is now boss. So we see competition on the national passport. So there's about 4 to 5 big initiatives. So ID 2020 is Microsoft, Azure, and IDEO. Sovereign is really getting traction. Uport and Yoda and WIN is World Identity Network from Richard Branson. They're all building passports. And they're building passports also because the United Nations Urban Agenda makes it a requirement by 2025, 2030 to basically have a registration or a passport for anybody on the planet over 5 years old. And in the back end, there is this idea that this is being done because for the refugees that have no identity, that need identity, and it's all true. But actually, what is happening is, again, me, I'm a citizen. Again, I'm a nice citizen. I like paying taxes, and I will always do that. Don't worry. But it's getting more difficult if I get less services, and if I have to buy all the other services from the commercial players. But I'm still a good person because I like having good roads, good education, good care. It's all going down, but I'm still fighting the right cause, the public cause. But basically, I get a passport for all of these efforts from the Dutch government, which I'm very happy with because I can travel. In 5 years, I'm going to travel on ID 2020 passport because ID 2020 is going to negotiate the visa rights for me, and I don't have to. I can leave my Dutch passport at home. I'm just traveling on ID 2020. ID 20 is creating this sort of building this layer for which I can travel, arranging all the visa rights because it's become like a service. Identities become like a service. This is a very good example in Holland. So because of GDPR, the city is now unable to, they can identify about 15 to 20,000 people that are in deep trouble that should no longer go and have any money to them lend in any way. But they cannot give the identities of these people to these service providers, to the banks, to the telcos, to the energy company. So what they did, and they is Bob Kronenberg from Leander and Manon den Dun from Dutch police, innovation, they created kind of a new identity. So every Dutch person has a very low level identifier, which is ident. On top of ident, they put some attributes saying this person cannot land this, or this person cannot land that. And that they turned into, they chose Ethereum. Now they have dropped that, but they could choose any other blockchain or less. But they turned it into a smart contract. And that smart contract is then handed over to these entities. And in this way, you can begin to see that this is a very sort of nice constellation because you can add more attributes to this. You can start building a kind of a secondary identity that's still public, that's still under public control, but that's not purely immediately identifying you as you with everything that's surrounding you also for your passport. So here we are sort of at this moment. All these goods, all these persons, all these situations are creating digital footprints or digital twins. These twins are in this analytic layer for where the big data is, and AI hits it and is creating these new entities. Now, whoever is naming these new entities is the new boss in the 21st century. And it's clear at the moment that Europe is not in any way near any of these positions to start naming these entities. In China, they can because they run Baidu and they run AI on Baidu. It's a full-blown situation, and this is because in China, where I also work a lot, the Tao Master in Shanghai, the last Chinese government had 9 engineers out of 12 top politicians. Xi Jinping is an engineer, so they've been running the country like a platform for the past 50, 60 years. And basically, I can also think I can say it's pretty stable. It's not going to blow in a few years. When I go to Wuxi IoT capital, I talk to people that are sharing clouds in value chains. If you don't share your cloud, you simply cannot operate. The last time I was there, I was talking to the microprocess building companies. They are now building these in collaborative prototyping environments. So if you don't take part in these collaborative prototyping environments, then you simply cannot build, you cannot produce. So this is a kind of situation so extremely well tuned to this techno-political setup. I think it's something that we have to look at in a very, very serious way. So it means that we have to build our own bubble, and we have to build a system for 500 million people. And I love to quote Lenin here also very quickly, because basically, I mean, this has been very said by like Marx, Lenin, Engels a long time ago. At some point, all these functions of state power become so simplified, reduced to such simple operations, there will be no more need for all the official grandeur that's tied to all these functions, which is exactly what we see now. We basically, but this is also the fault of these institutions themselves, that have taken reality to the layer, to a level of data, that have said, no, we only talk about economics, so that we leave everything aside. And if you do that, well then, of course, you should not be very surprised that at the end, there's a system actually set that is giving you this, showing you that you've reduced yourself to this simple set of operations. And this is where we are now. Now, as we know this, again, should be very careful with this knowledge. That's why I'm also part of this next generation internet project. We won the strategy calls. I'm in a project with Nesta and Edge Riders, where we won the strategy call for the next 3 years. We're setting up meetings and all kinds of expert meetings and open meetings and meetups, where we try to debate with the people actually running institutions at the moment, how we can keep and this sort of keep this kind of sort of the negative aspects that are in this kind of flow at bay, and find a way in which we can take as much value of the old system into this new networked kind of culture. Now, there's also some money for that, and I'm very happy to say also that the Next Generation Internet as a program is now into the next work program. So there's going to be not just millions, but billions sort of in the end for this program. But at the moment, there are 4 goals out. And if you go to ngi.eu, find them, and each goal has about 6 million in cascading funds. So it's about 100,000, 300,000, 200,000 for small, dedicated, sharply defined projects like go to the ledger and get the funding. And so basically, also, I would like to urge everyone here to look at this. Later on, you get to Dave, you get to me, and we can exchange cards. I can give you my email because it's part of my job to go around and tell people about next generation internet and all the calls that are open. Okay, so I think I'm going to shut up because there's a lot of talk. But so we need a third way between GAFA and China. So we need to build our own third way here in Europe. And we got some ideas how we can do that. One is turning the passport into a device. This is hardcore. And the next passport that you will get will be a European passport, and this will be a device. It will only talk to our platforms. It will only talk to our clouds. And so gradually we'll phase out Facebook and Google, and within 5 to 10 years, we'll make it a very, very valuable ecosystem, just like Steve Jobs did with Apple. And we're setting up meetings with people in Article 6 committee that are actually the passport officers in the European Commission. Again, we can do this because of this next generation internet umbrella. And then we're also, and this passport could be a 5G phone. So imagine we issue everybody in Europe with a 5G phone, and that's actually also we build it ourselves. We hard code GDPR in that. That's we make sure that that's the start of a system. March 22, everybody's invited in the European Parliament. So we are going to have a kind of a closing session for Next Generation Move, NGI Move, and a kickoff session for NGI Forward, which is the CSA that's starting then. Marietje Schaake will open, and there will be, I think, a lot of, there will be talks and there'll be panels, and so if you want to come, please come and join us there in the Parliament. You can, if you go to NGI, you also find ngi.eu, you find the link, please register, and if you want to, I think I should tell you to register quickly because it's 150 people, and so we think there's going to be a lot of people, and we want it packed, and we want it packed with the right people. So if you could register, that would be very good. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks so much. Yeah, indeed, China is indeed winning the most important race in the last 500 years in humanity. And I'm very thankful that we have a bright mind like Rob on our team. So a couple of weeks ago, I was in Brussels, and Europe is still in the running. Another bright mind is a professor here at IMEC. I met Ruben in 2017 when he was just expecting his child. Yeah, that's right. So, no further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Professor Ruben Verboort, professor at Semantic Technology.
Hi everyone. As you know, we have completely lost control of our personal data on the web. The philosophy in which apps are built is completely wrong. Like, we've become used to the fact that we have to send them our data before we can use them. It seems logical because this is what we're doing all the time, but in fact, just having to give your data away all the time doesn't make sense if you think about it. It's your data. Why should you have to give it every time again? Doing this creates lots of problems. I'm going to talk about those problems. I'm going to talk about solutions as well. One of those solutions is called Solid. Solid is an ecosystem that gives you back choice online, and by giving you back that choice, you can also take back control of your own personal data and identity. Take pictures all you want. I just tweeted the slides. You can also find some hashtag overlap. So what I'm here today, what I'm here for is I want to redefine the relation that we have between people, apps, and data. Currently, the relation is completely broken because the data always moves to the apps, to the services, on a new relation in which we keep the data close to ourselves and we can choose how it is used. We can control our data. And if we do that, if we take control over the way our data flows, then we can take control over the choices that we make online. Because today, we don't have enough choices because our data is being kept. Briefly about me, who am I to talk about all these things? Well, I'm a professor of computer science here at Ghent University. In fact, this is the campus that I work on. You can find me just down the street, in fact. I work with semantic web technologies, working on the future web. Also work with Inrupt, which is a company behind the Solid ecosystem. Now, Solid is an initiative by web inventor Tim Berners-Lee. Next week, in fact, just 1 week from today, the web is turning 30. And Tim Berners-Lee is very concerned about what is happening to the web, because this is not what he had envisaged. Like, it was a tool to create freedom for us all, but instead, some apps are keeping us hostage, right? So I'm working with Tim Berners-Lee and others to try to reverse this trend, and this is what Solid is all about. So what's the big story here? Well, this is a view that you're all very familiar with. Social media posts, we see it all the time. Today, the data that makes up this view is stored in a single place. And this is the main problem of everything that we see today. With Solid, we start from a very simple idea. That idea is that every single piece of data you produce, you choose where you store it. That's all. This is where it starts from. This means that if a view like this one, if this is my social media post, well, this text is stored in a space that I choose, in my data pod, in my data folder, right? My profile picture is mine. I store it in my space. If you react to my post, well, this reaction is yours. Your profile picture is yours, so you store it wherever you want. And even a piece of data as small as a like. I like this post, well, this like is yours. It's stored in your data vault, in your data space. So that means that a view like this one, in the new web, the data for it will come from many different places instead of just from one place. Now, why is this simple idea so important? Well, it gives rise to a number of interesting consequences. On the left-hand side, you have the web as we currently have it. And you see that an app is always a combination of an app and data. The data lives very close to the app, right? So when we say Facebook, we mean the software platform. We also mean my Facebook, the data about me that Facebook has. And they all hold on to that data. And this has a couple of problems. For instance, the walled gardens of social media, where I cannot share a Facebook picture with my LinkedIn colleagues. I have to move the data or I have to move the people. And this moving around all the time shows that this model is broken. Data should need to move around all the time. Also use synchronization problems. I have to always tell all services the latest version. Like if I create an event in Facebook, Google doesn't know about it and vice versa. Have you tried to update your profile picture lately? How many times do you have to update? All of those things show how broken this model is. If we instead push data out of the apps, if we put it into people's personal spaces, we get a completely different situation. There is no need to synchronize because there's only one copy. The applications, they become views on top of our personal data. They ask permission to see specific things. We can give it to them. And we can begin editing in one application, move to another, and we can even switch applications without losing our data. Because nowadays, try to say, well, Facebook, I'm going to use something else. Well, tough luck, because Facebook has your data. Here, you have your data, you can move between apps as you please. So this is great for people, this is great for privacy, but let's be honest, who today really cares about privacy? I guess people in this room do, but if you tell people, hey, I have a new system that has more privacy, few people will switch. I think there's a more important driver here, no matter how much I care about privacy, and this is innovation. Left-hand side, again, is a situation that we have today. This is a situation where you cannot innovate. It's a competition based on data ownership. In each sector, the one with the most data wins. It doesn't matter whether you innovate or not. What's the result? Who can name me one major innovation that Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn has done in the past 5 years? I can name any, maybe you can. The thing is, they don't innovate. They don't need to because they have your data already. It also means if I'm a new company, if I have an idea to give a better experience, well, again, tough luck. I cannot enter the market because I don't have the data. Only the one with the most data wins here. With solids, if we keep data close to people, what happens is that you get competition in two levels. Applications compete with each other, and this is not a winner-takes-all competition. You choose the app you like best, you choose the app that you like best. Because today we have a situation where we need to be on WhatsApp for our friends, and Viber for our mother, and iMessage for our brother, and so on. Those things don't talk to each other. Here, you pick the app you like, and we can still talk to each other because independently of the app choice, you also get to choose your storage provider. So this separation and this independent competition on two separate markets is what is for me really important. This is important for innovation, and this is what I think will drive the change. People won't start using this because they have more privacy. They will start using this because they get a better experience. And that experience will, of course, result in better privacy. Will it be free? Maybe, maybe not. That's not the point. The point is about choice. You can choose a paying storage provider, you can choose a free storage provider. The free provider will mine your data, the paying one will not. And this choice is the most important thing because this is something you cannot do today. You cannot say to Facebook, like, here's $5 a month, but please don't mine my data. You don't get a choice. Here you get choice of apps, choice of storage. You can choose whether you pay or not. So this is what the idea of Solid is all about. Now, Solid is much more than an idea. We have a whole ecosystem, and an ecosystem consists of software and specifications. So the idea is that there's data pods, and on your data pods you can store whatever you want. Your profile, your photos, your likes, whatever data you generate, you store it there, it's yours. We have implementations of such data pods. In fact, there's a couple of free instances online. You can even set up your own, it doesn't matter. There's a couple of applications like photo albums, meeting applications, and so on. Basically, everything you can dream of on the web, you can build it without owning people's data. Now, how does this work? Well, through standards. The idea is that we start from the existing web. This is not a new web. And just like you can use any browser to see any website, you'll be able to use any application to access any data pod. And this kind of interoperability is guaranteed by standards, and participating in this ecosystem means that you respect those standards. That's a story about Solid. Very quickly, what do I hope to gain? Well, right now, I'm working with the Solid team in making this a reality. I'm doing research for technologies that are used within Solid. But I'm looking for collaborations. I'm looking for use cases to work on. I'm looking to get together with different projects to find common standards, both in a bilateral way and in national projects here within Belgium, and also European projects all over Europe. Basically, we're looking for use cases in which innovation and privacy matter. We want to solve them with existing web technology instead of reinventing the wheel. That's Solid. Google all you want, Google my name, Google on Solid. You'll find lots of information. Check out hashtag overweb, and you get these slides and much more links. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Ruben. I think we can all agree there's a lot of passion in this room, right? So, and that is what I so admire about you guys as well. Our next speaker is still busy on his slides. I guess that's Tom.
That's typical.
Yeah, that's typical. One of my best friends, we worked together at the settlement at DAO. We are both blockchain fans. And Tom is an amazing guy in his space. I remember when he called me that he was announced as the chairman of the IoT Digital Work Group, Mr. Tom de Blok.
No signal, so.
Yeah.
Okay, just also give me a second. Okay, you know what? I can do it down. Okay, yeah, so I was still busy on my slides. One of the things I added is this part, you know, because it's relevant to tonight. So, okay, so just to present myself, I'm a solution architect, mainly blockchain solutions, but let's say solution in general, platform solution architect. I can tell you a lot of things because I was busy with a lot of craziness today between the Port of Antwerp and a lot of other institutions and totally crazy IoT stuff. But there's one thing specific, one use case specific I want to talk to. By the way, the professor, where, okay, I need to talk to you later. We have some use cases for you. Okay, so one specific use case I want to talk to you about is about the crowd air quality monitoring to stimulate action. So, okay, big words, but I want to give you the context where it comes from. So we have some organizations in Belgium. One of them is Smart Cities Vlaanderen, so the Flemish area smart city organization. Well, you have two actually, DSP Valley and Agoria. Now, this one specific, I participated in a few workshops, and I also mentioned so that no action. That's one thing, one of the things which disappointed me in all of these, because you have all the governments, big companies, big money around the table, and we come to a conclusion that yes, we all want to deploy an air quality network because we recently have been notified by statistical campaigns, temporary campaigns, I mean, that the air quality in Flanders specific was very, very bad. So it was front page news for a few weeks, big scandals, and then now, a few weeks later, nobody talks about it. Really, the situation is not better. It's actually worse during the winter. So here I was participating in these workshops and coming to the point that all the governments who sit on a lot of money, they were actually looking for, again, yeah, they have access to some money, sitting there and expecting like money to come out of the European cloud to be able to build it. Well, actually, at the moment itself, I counted the number of schools because we all agree we want to deploy a sensor network in schools first. Let's first take care of the kids and the older age. So I counted over 5,000 schools in Flanders and a good air quality sensor, which lives 2 years. After 2 years to renew it, cost about 250 euro. Actually, it costs less, but with connectivity and so on, 250 euro round price times 5,000. I come to a project budget of 1.5 million. Now, the temporary measurement in a few months ago, which was during a few months, produce measurement campaign, it has cost them 2 million, and it was a temporary measurement. So, a bit of frustration there. Let's, let the people speak. So I think I can speak for the people. I'm also a parent, I have 3 kids. I want this thing to happen. I want this network to be, I want the air quality monitoring in the school to happen. And not next year, I want it now, 2019. Now, during the discussion about the funding, I also gave them the insight that in our space, we're in the crypto space, blockchain space. I was involved in another geek project. It's called Data Broker DAO. We had an IoT data marketplace. Most of the people don't even understand what that means. But we collected in our ICO, we collected 4.3 million euro. And it was a geek thing, We could only reach IoT-minded people and crypto investors and stuff. So here we're talking about air quality in schools. I mean, everyone understands, kids taking care, So why not? Since the last working shop, I went straight forward. I said, now, guys, for the next working shop, I will bring you the stuff on a plate. I will give you the scenario. I will give you the building blocks, the partners, the whole thing. So that's actually the thing I want to explain. How that looks like and the exponential interest to the subject. I'm not going to explain about every talk I had, like Bert, you're one of them. It's amazing. Everyone understands what it is. Now, I also made this, how it would look like. And in my wicked mind of a blockchain solution architect, I not only found a way to, well, we have a way, let's say traditional crowdfunding can do the thing. But I want to go a step forward, a step further, specifically in the IoT space where I work with other working groups. There's a big issue in sustainability of these IoT networks, meaning like a lot of smart city deployments have cost a lot of money, but then there's no monetization or no financial sustainability built in. It just needs to pump more money into the region. These networks have to be renewed, maintained. All that has not been taken, has not been thought of. Well, not always. So we found a lot of outdated and not properly maintained networks. Now here, I take the opportunity also to introduce to the people what can be the proper usage of what could be the advantage of this technology everyone talks about, you know, blockchain. What is the added value of that thing now? We have a few different reasons why blockchain is very interesting here. First of all, transparency. So the measurement would be crowd measurement, and would also the publication would be publicly available. So there is no filtering, there is no centralized party who will be able to eventually, I don't know, filter or whatever the results. Now, on the other hand, in sustainability, I thought about a system of subscriptions. So basically, the sensor initially founded is installed on the schools, and parents, typically the parents and probably other people with interest in that school, local government or whatever, they would actually take subscriptions. Now, these subscriptions would be like a funding. If you want if you want to support this system, you take a subscription on a sensor, and you have a certain time-boxed access to that sensor. By doing so, you would actually fund the replacement and the maintenance of that sensing location. So, doing so, if you think that in a decentralized way, if you would have schools where a sensor doesn't measure any wrong data, any bad air quality or so, people would actually lose interest to consult it, because it doesn't make sense. Your school is in a nice green area. So after 2 years, typically this sensor will not be replaced. Now at the other, because he's not funded, you know, he didn't get enough of subscriptions, so typically the network itself will not have enough funding to replace that sensor after 2 years. Now at the other hand, if a sensor measures some stuff, and it maybe if a lot of people are, imagine a big school, a lot of kids there, and a lot of subscribers would actually mean either way you can install your funding to install another sensor, but for sure the first one will be renewed. So there will be a correction of that deployment, a growth of a network, a constant funding mechanism to these subscriptions. So that's a way I want to show the world what is a DAO, you know, a decentralized autonomous organization. Yes. I think not only the project itself is a must-do and a thing I personally want to do, but it also brings some awareness about the technology. So I think it cuts many different ways. So what can I say about this? Well, yeah, I just imagined how that would look like, subscriptions and yeah, I mentioned all this. Now the next steps. Okay, so I got some traction, talked to some nice people, and basically everyone I talk about say maybe the same day sends me a message like, how can I help you with that project? Okay, look around you. Your schools is the answer I gave you. If you want to support it, how many schools you have in your village? 6 schools. Okay, 6 times 250. That's what you can add to it. Now, when I mean exponential interest, there's even the European Space Agency through some intermediary got aware of the project, so they actually want to provide initial funding. So they've been talking about like big numbers, but then again, I don't want them to bring the big numbers. I want a certain amount, which actually we already have. But imagine if a big authority would suddenly give the 1.5 million and we can deploy everything, there will be no citizen engagement. I want the activation of the community. I want the activation of the kids. In Brussels, the kids every Thursday come we need to spell it.
Climate action.
They have a climate action every Thursday. Kids go in the street in Brussels to demonstrate, for climate. They ask for climate action, so let them all move. 250 euros peanuts. Do a collection, send some waffles to your family, whatever. Get your 250 euro, move your ass. Same for the cities, for the villages, for the even the parents, whatever. It cuts so many ways. It is already a success. It doesn't exist yet. It's already a success. In the start, I felt like I was pushing it, and now this thing is actually pulling me, really, because everyone who got aware of it, they're like, hey, and how is it? And hey, I have another one. Hey, someone wants to meet. It go. In 3 weeks, I'm gonna come to that smart city with Lauren workshop. I'm gonna give them a thing on the plate. Yeah.
Nice.
No, but it's
Yeah.
gonna happen anyway. I don't care if they want to do it or not. We are doing it. They can join. No, I mean, it's something else of building. To be sustainable. I foresee a certain percentage building in the smart contracts. So there is a certain percentage for the maintenance because, of course, we want to do it because it's well hard that it's a blockchain for good, whatever you want. We also need to live. So the maintenance, everyone can accept that. Let's say 10% of the network have to go to the maintenance, and voila, we have our business model. Because without business model, you cannot maintain these kind of things. It's been reasonable. So all of that. I mentioned the DAO, metadata standardization. That's boring and geek. I'm not going to talk about it, but there is it cuts with another file I'm doing, and then my AOTI, the proud of my blockchain work stream, which evolved to a working group on distributed ledger technology. It represents European industry, and I want to use this platform for dissemination, publication, spreading the stuff, just kick it and make it. Yeah, voilà. One thing I want to make, what I mentioned here, so everyone's welcome. I invite you to connect with me over LinkedIn, the most easy way to reach me, easier than the phone, or to come and meet us in a Family Brews co-working space, which is in Brussels. So anybody can find the way to the center of Brussels, there is a co-working space over there. So thank you.
And there's very good beer in his family brew shop there. Yeah, so anyhow, building a better future for the future generations, that is what it's all about, right? The students are indeed protesting for climate and asking for answers, asking for solution. You're going to give it to them. Our next speaker is also a good friend of mine, a colleague of the Silicon Valley Blockchain Society, and also co-founder of Lumo Labs. Give a round of applause for Mr. Andy Lurling.
Well, I hope it works. Let's see. Nope. I have to say, David, I'm impressed. Of course, I knew some people already, but we had some talks, but this was the first time that I really thought. I know you from another project and the early stage of this. Really happy to see how it evolved. Impressed. And this is also again some beauty. The professor was new to me, but love it. And I believe keyword is also connection. Nowadays, look at that. It worked. And once. Okay. Lumo Labs. The founder. After I have been entrepreneurial since 2003, always in tech, emerging tech. First time I lost a bit of money, second time I gained a bit, not too much, and the third time I gained a bit more. And then I went to Spain. After the summer holiday, I thought like, this is boring. And I started to see what my next step would be. I like the startup scene the best. That's why I stayed in the startup scene. I started to advise our young entrepreneurs. Always got a bit frustrated because I saw great entrepreneurs, great products, but not as in Silicon Valley. People were saying, "Okay, here you go."
Right?
Yeah, go ahead. And of course, that doesn't happen all the time, you know. But in the end, we put some money together ourselves and said, "Okay, listen, we're going to show that it can work." And that became Nuance. Early stage seed capital fund plus venture builder. And we invest in, and I always say human intelligence because that's step one. Then AI, data, the XR, blockchain, robotics, and IoT. We do that for a reason because I don't believe in blockchain. I don't believe in AI. I don't believe in XR. I believe in that all together. That's make happen. Yeah. I'm a member of Nexus. You can find that yourselves on the internet. Member of Global Entrepreneurship Network. Interesting one. Why? Because June 4 to 6, this will be happening. This summit will be happening in The Hague. Very interesting because you will find all kinds of people who will like to hear your story. You still can apply at this moment for also giving a speech. I believe 1,500 entrepreneurs will be also invited to come free of charge. And it is a mix of political people, entrepreneurs, investors, very nice, small Davos, I would say. And founding member of Silicon Valley Blockchain Society, David, which has the founder of David Ellington, you know, also. I met him also at Essen.
Yeah.
Really inspiring person. And in the end, he wants to fund the revolution with blockchain. We are starting the chapter here in the Benelux, most likely in October this year. We'll keep you up to date for that. I guess there will be a group or mailing or something of those people. Yeah, that we can people in the loop. In the end, it is about people who made a lot of money with crypto, investors around it, entrepreneurs, and we want to do good with blockchain. You are also involved. Okay, New Labs 2-year program, pre-seeds, and we help you to Series A. It's hands-on coaching. That's also why we ask you to come in one of our labs. It doesn't have to be 24/7, but often enough. Otherwise, we are always traveling. That will lose a lot of our time. Plus, we are working towards the synergy between the companies we are looking for, and that's what we are aiming for. You see all those decks, and I see your deck, I see your deck, I see your deck, and then I think like, oh, if we combine that together, that would be really great. And that's why we want to put you together in lunches in the office, and then say, let's go and talk together. Go and talk and see what's happening. Currently offices in Los Angeles and Eindhoven, the Netherlands, and Taiwan is in the making. And we believe that emerging technologies can solve one of a few of the big challenges we have in the world. How good would it be for frogs that they don't have to be dissected anymore?
Yeah.
They will be very happy
Yeah.
that we now can do this
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Plus, that the way we learn is the best way, is just face to face. That's the best way, because that's how we are taught for generations when we were walking on 4 legs and hands and legs, etc., etc. That's the best way. And actually, it's not that normal to read books or to listen. It's the total package, and we get that back with XR. So the learning opportunities are getting better and better. one of the items. We see a lot of robotics, we see a lot of IoT. But if we are a bit depending later in a few years on help, and it's a robotic who just puts me up, puts me down, would I be happy? I would not be happy. So we want the robotics to have empathy, and those are items we are thinking of as Lumilabs. That doesn't mean that it has to look like a human, but it needs to have like emotions and voice control. If you are sad, I have to recognize as a robot that you are sad. Those kind of things. Blockchain. I was totally astonished, and you mentioned already that when somebody pitched me and he said, and it turned out to be true, that 1.8 billion people in the world, they don't have any form of ID, therefore no health record, therefore no work, no even potential to have a loan. So those are things we are working on. We have been working with It's Me. Well, we're going to work with It's Me, I have to say. There's an American company, EverID, we are working with to establish this. EverID won a pitch in a conglomerate in Indonesia. I don't know if you heard about that.
No.
Okay, so Indonesia is one of the first countries who are installing digital IDs because all those people, they don't have IDs, they all have mobile phones. Small step. And then I think this is the central topic of tonight. Smart cities, sustainable cities. I like to speak about sustainable cities because smart is a bit, what is smart? You know? Tom Furness, you know him.
Yes.
You know, yeah. I call him my granddad. And he's professor on the University of Washington. Did some research, and when we see, then that's the closest area also to empathy. So if we have to make a decision based on visual or on an Excel sheet, then that will be quite different because on the Excel sheet, the empathy level is so much lower than when we see. So what if we can have Bert as the local mayor of, how do you say that? Deputy mayor, he needs to make a decision and he has to cut the ambulances for 20% on an Excel sheet, or he sees people dying because of his choice. Maybe he has to, but I rather have him make that decision by having felt that empathy. I'm sorry, man. You will have a tough job. But smart cities is one of the topics we are totally focusing on. In the first fund, we have been working already with the construct of putting people together with all kinds of specialism, like VR, like AI, like data, etc., blockchain. But it was always looking around, okay, what kind of super product we should work on. And that's why we as Lumilabs have been thinking about, okay, how should we create a theme around it. And that's why we, also because we were already developing in a sustainable way, like, okay, don't go maximize profit, go for sustainability. And therefore, the global goals were an outcome in that sense. And based on our experience, our background, our network, we said, okay, we identified sustainable cities, quality and quality education, health and well-being as being an Eindhoven, Philips, healthcare, etc. As our topics, which we invest in. And in the end, we are all about cross-pollination, about, okay, guys, let's work together. And that's not only within the startups of Lumilabs, but it's also with you. Where we also work with the larger corporates. But what you tend to see is that larger corporates then immediately do this. And that's what we try not to do. And in the end, for us, it's and that's what I've seen a lot. That people develop technology because that's cool, but it's most of the time to make us lazier, dumber, because we have to do less. And we believe it should be the other way around. It should like empower us. Technology should empower us. So that's one of the things we are totally looking at. And the best example I just can mention is Wall E in that sense. If you didn't see it, go and have a look. We work according to the triple helix model, which is in Brainport model, and that's that we are close working with universities, the large corporates, but also government, especially here in Europe, because of the grants you can get. A lot of grants.
Yeah.
Yeah, you better move.
Yeah.
And we as a group, we defend and empower, is a better word, the startups. Because often they are mingled away within the government, because the government also, like if I chose Ernst & Young, not the local accountant, because everybody would have done that. That's the world we are living in still now. And by being a bigger name, being a bigger group, we empower the startups in that sense. Two examples. And of course, I didn't know who all was coming and what would have been said. But what I want to emphasize on is that, because in the next year, we're going to focus on sustainable cities in Eindhoven. Because of that, I've been working on an ecosystem to give our startups, but also other startups, a chance. In that sense, I guess we succeed. So the high-tech campus in Eindhoven, the former Philips Research and Design Center, it's a square kilometer. It's going to be in the Netherlands the first 5G test lab with mission critical footprints. And that's the area where we are in. It's going to be Vodafone, Ericsson, the city of Eindhoven, the high-tech campus, the PSV Stadium, but also Lumilabs, who are going to collaborate. And it's not about the 5G, but it's about use cases. What can you do with 5G? And what's the value of 5G? Which is going to be a private and public collaboration, also to secure privacy. I'm not allowed to say that at the end of this month the papers will be signed, so that's not paid. And as of August, September, the system will be there, outside, inside. And we are now selecting 15 to 20 use cases to run there. Might be interesting. Really would love to talk.
Yeah, because we're also talking to Gerberon. So Amsterdam is in our consortium, and I just had a meeting with Ger on the Zuidoost, where they're going to do. Yeah, so it'd be great to.
The digitalization of Eindhoven is talking to.
Yeah, fantastic. I just wrote it down.
Yeah. And I believe there are maybe more people in the room who might have use cases. And I would say, and I would invite you to just come to me and let me know. There's a good thing, there's also budgets. Grants.
Yes.
For this. And for me, I've been working on this ecosystem because I've seen a lot of. I was in Taipei, and for Smart Taipei, and my first question was, of the 10 projects you have, okay, how are they connected? And then I saw everybody looking at each other like, oh, okay, they are not connected. Okay, and my next question was, okay, how smart is that?
Not very.
And therefore, I've been looking for an operating system. I found two. One is a German company, and they visualize in 3D in instant the city. So everything which is censored you can see in AR or VR. Plus you can simulate. Plus it also stimulates bottom-up democracy. So if I want to have a bench in my street, I go to people on my street and I say, okay, listen, what do you think if this bench is going to be in the street? It's low level risk, so no need to inform Bert about it, that he has to give a signature. There's just budget for those kind of things, and the bench will be placed. Of course, if I would like to have some kind of mention the thing, electricity call into the back of my yard, then you have to give an okay on it. But it's all on simple blockchain smart contracts kind of things. And again, blockchain is not much more than in the end commodity in 2 years. And I believe that we have to really realize. Another one is Versus. It's a company which is in our office in LA. They're now setting up the office in Eindhoven also. Now I have here on the screen. Meaning that I'm logged out.
Same happened with the
Because I wanted to show you two pictures of projects we have and have done to show you the idea. Thanks. Okay, there we go. First one is a project of Fund One, where we brought a company together who does full body VR for training simulation and entertainment. Other one is in VR content company, because you can have all the platforms, all the technology, but in the end you need content. And that's why we were one of the few to invest in content. Together, and that's the power of sitting together on a daily basis and collaborate and see what the other is doing and get the best out of each other. Developed a VR esports game, which now actually with Sport Vlaanderen, I'm not going to translate that. I guess that's Sport Vlaanderen. We are planning to do a tour de Belgique, go through the schools, because what is happening nowadays, this is the most exercised term of our youth. Muscle of our youth, this games application brings the exercise back to the youth in the world they know. That's the game. That's just to give you an idea. If it's not too slow.
You have to exit the presentation.
Yes. I guess it doesn't. check, double check, huh? That's always the case. There we go. Always nice to sound. This is not working. Now, for now, I'm doing it without sound, unfortunately. But what you see is that we bring the game environment into the real world. And then everybody's thinking like, okay, I'm not gonna dance and I'm not gonna jump and I'm not gonna roll. When I have to sit on, but then you put on the VR HMV and you're in the other world and you don't even have a clue that like 20 people are watching you. You're just away in that world and you are going ahead. This one is getting quite some traction. And in Holland now the Dutch Olympic Committee has acquired a system for their sports people, but also they say this is the first time that we believe that esports can be an Olympic sport because we don't believe in this, we believe in full body.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so that's
Really cool.
and then the cool thing is that 2028 the Olympic Games are in LA, so.
Okay. Esports might be.
Esports might be one.
Yeah.
And the other one is, no, I have to check. The other one is, of course, that LA wants to be a smart city during the Olympic Games. So there's a lot to do there. The Dutch government even opens an office now there to stimulate Dutch entrepreneurs and companies to be part in tenders, etc. So maybe good things to discuss with the government. Let me check here.
I don't recognize you.
Easy, that's easy talk.
It's a bit of a shame that I don't have sound. Let's see if it works with this one.
Don't have a link.
Why should I?
Go.
Why is this one working? The thing is, this way even sounds. So I'll check this one. Otherwise, it's a bit of a shame. I'm just gonna try. It's not working, huh?
Your computer sound?
Hmm?
Your computer sound, is it on?
Yeah, it should be on. Yeah. So, Professor.
There's instruction on table for switching the sound. It's a long list. So.
Yeah, it's a long list. So, let me guide you through it then. First is this company that created the spatial web. And what happens nowadays, that all over the place digital twins are being built. But our data is still two-dimensional. So the spatial web and also the HTTP and HTTPS is all two-dimensional. And the spatial web means that they created the ZX. So therefore, this point which I have here also has a virtual point with the spatial web. Therefore, you can connect the real world exactly in the digital twin. even with moving objects. The first time that Dan Mapes, the founder, who's a friend of mine, explained to me, I said, okay, see it believe it when I see it. But then he showed me in a warehouse where it's working now. The cool thing is that the spatial lab is a foundation, so it's open source. People can just use it. And on top of that, they created a company that builds applications on it. But everybody's more or less free to build, and they can use their SDKs, APIs. With this, autonomous cars, autonomous drones, in that sense, in my opinion, would be so much easier to arrange. And in the end, I believe this could be one of the new protocols for IoT. Dan is here March 28, 29, so I really think we should also meet him. And then the fun part is that we have an investment table every quarter, and I would say about 3 billion on the table of investors, and then presented this as being an American Silicon Valley entrepreneur, and the only answer from the investors was, yeah, but you can get for this, you can get the money in America. Why do you come here? And he says, because I want to connect. This is about a global impact thing. I don't want to have my money only from US. I have it now in Japan. I have it in US. I also have money from Europe. One thing to think about, I would say. It's a bit of a shame that the videos didn't work.
We can post it and send it to you.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah. So smart city use cases. Please feel free to reach out. And that's it from me.
Very clear one. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I hope you're still awake and ready for some love, because the next project I'm going to introduce to you, it's something I felt immediately in love with. Actually, this is a very special day because we've been chatting for the last year and a half now, I guess, something like that. And it's the first time actually meeting in real life. So, the Give Foundation is something you're gonna love instantly. You heard the passion. What? Oh yeah. You heard the passion about Tom about the air quality. That needs things to be done, but we also need financial literacy for children, and also to teach them about giving. And giving is also an incentive in this way, and to teach them also to give that incentive away towards renewable projects, because our generation, I don't know if I can say this, but it's a little bit screwed up. But if we start from the beginning to teach them how it's done properly, then it is all about giving. I'm not simple.
Thank you very much.
So, thank you again for organizing it. Thank you for these amazing speakers before, because that's an amazing introduction to what we're talking about here. I think, the originality of what we're going to present here is that we're using technology to change the world, but change the world at the human level, not just the technology aspects of it. In the end, we're all getting to the same place anyway, right? But what we're looking to do here is what we're actually doing already, because we already started, is creating a world. Imagine a world where our economy, our everyday economy, is based on gifting. It's based on empathy, on compassion. It is based on knowing how to manage money, of course, but also how to help others, how to be more of a community and maybe less of an individual, and how we can together change our community, our planet, or change our destiny overall. And that's a little bit what we're working on here, using blockchain. So we're using, technology, of course, for that to happen. We call it Give, and it's about teaching financial literacy and the power of giving to our kids. So I have several questions. Who has kids here? Okay, a bit less than half. Now I have a trick question. Who has been a kid? What?
Still in, yeah.
Okay. So it's all about you. And what we're doing, so here we have Drita from the Ministry of Education of Kosovo saying that Give is an incubator for young people to learn finance, entrepreneurship, and innovation and prepare the future businessman. We'll get back to her in a second. Then we have Steve from Aviva. Aviva is an insurance group. Their revenue is 50 billion a year, so it's kind of a big one. And that guy is the chief responsible investment officer. And he says that in order to get to the SDGs, we need 70 trillion to make it happen by 2030. And Give Nation, which is what we're talking about here, is so incredibly important to delivering these SDGs. We'll get to that in a second as well. So Give, what we're creating is a real nation of 1.6 billion kids, aka all the kids in this planet. It's a nation of all the kids from 5 to 18 years old, and they have one currency called Give. So it's not the dollar, it's not the euro, it's not the shekel, it's the Give coin. And that Give coin allows them to act as adults, but in a safe and secure environment, in a decentralized one as well, by the way, and a transparent one, and so on and so forth. So by providing them a space where they can empower themselves, where they can be as adults, again, in a very safe and secure environment, then they can get empowered, they can get creative, they can create a new world. More so if that world is based on empathy, compassion, altruism. Would you like to live in a society where empathy, compassion, and altruism is the norm?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I was unsure all of a sudden. So here we're talking about, so financial literacy is a huge problem in the world today. It's a big, big problem. It's a problem that is getting worse and worse, generation after generation. So the OECD started to see that like 20 years ago, and now they are seeing that the next generation, the millennials, are worse than the baby boomers, which is kind of an issue. So we have a big problem and looming and getting worse and worse and worse. So it is also a huge opportunity, of course, because you can spread out a tool that enables naturally through gamification for people to learn how to manage money and do a lot of different things. That would be amazing, I think. And we're talking about 1.6 billion kids, which is all the kids on this planet. And it's a $500 billion opportunity. We're talking here about the pocket money economy that exists in this world today, as per the statistics that we have. It's already $500 billion, maybe more, we don't know. We'll check out in a few years when we have these 1.6 on the platform. So the opportunities there is, at least from a business standpoint, or from a, from how can we scale? We're looking at scaling to 8 million kids within 3 years to manage $1 billion of pocket money revenue in this case, and generate $70 million in revenue, which in turn are being injected again into the economy of the kids. So how does that work? Well, it starts with an app that is simple. It's an Apple tree, it's a wallet, and that wallet enables me not only to invest in trees, in solar panels, in wind turbines, all towards the SDG. in saving money, maybe to buy the latest Nikes, or I don't know, or latest game. I can buy or get for free or earn money educating myself, watching tech videos, or so I watch a text video, I answer questions, and if I answer it right, I get some gift coins. Or companies can pay me to educate myself on water, on hygiene, and so on and so forth. Playing, because I'm a kid, so I want to play most of the time, right? So I can buy games, I can buy again T-shirts and whatnot, accessories, music, etc. And then the last bit, of course, is giving. So giving to charities. And I learn also how to earn money by doing my chores to my parents, by offering my services to my friends, by doing babysitting and so on. And again, buying, saving, investing, and donating. And it goes along with marketplaces, as I mentioned, with all that within the environment of a school. Each school is an independent economy, a decentralized one. It is also all together, all these schools are economies as well. And these economies are powered by blockchain, by IoT, and many other things. We already have many partners that allows us to reach to 10 million kids very quickly. Aflatun is a world leader in financial education and bringing a full curriculum in the school that we offer to the schools to solve the big problem, the financial literacy problem. And then with that, we activate economies within the schools that are already existing but never have been put within the same context, which is an app and all these beautiful partners and providers we can bring to them. And again, all that within a context of a gig economy and a circular one at that. So this is Aflatun. Why the Give Nation? I'm going to skip that one. So to give you a scale, and that was very interesting to the guys at Aviva, who are all about the SDGs. The moment we are scaled, and technologically speaking, we know we can do it. That's not a problem. We already have the Facebooks of the world with a few billion people on board, so it's possible. We would invest collectively, the kids only would invest collectively 150 billion every year towards the SDG, which is, again, that's their planet. It's not us. Within 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now, what we're doing today is going to have an impact on them. And they are the ones that should be choosing what is important to them. I mean, we kind of have an idea, of course, but then again, sometimes they are wiser than us. I mean, when I see my kids, definitely. So they have the ability to show us where we should put our efforts and our work, and make some real changes, not just talk. As a matter of fact, with the company that I'm advising, we're starting an alliance, which is going to be the SDG Alliance, with people like BlackRock, Barclays, Deutsche Bank, that are going to sign a pledge. And Give Nation is going to sign that pledge as well, where we're going to pledge towards the SDG. And what's interesting there is that they are all looking towards how can we improve our investments into SDGs, and how can we create an environment where this is possible. And they are going to accept the kids as their council members, how to show them the path towards that. The funny thing is, that's going to happen on April 5th in London, before the mayor of London, and we're going to pull 100 classrooms from across the world witnessing that event through the internet. That's going to be awesome. So that's what the kind of thing Give Nation can do. Again, it's a nation. So I'm, the transitory president, and there will be down the road maybe some others. So we started in Kosovo last year. So Kosovo is a very interesting country. It's in Europe. They are not yet in the EU. It's 100 kilometers diameter, which is very, very small. And 1 million kids, which is 50% of the population, which is kind of mad. So it's the youngest country here. The minimum hourly wage is €1 per hour, which is not a lot by Brussels numbers, I'd say. The net average monthly salary is 364. A teacher gets €500 per month. So they still have a long way to go to be more and more prosperous, but they are an amazing population, really, really amazing. So we started with 800 kids from 7 to 18. We got them on our MVP. They had lots of fun. We learned a lot. And now we're getting to the next stage. So first, I'm going to give you some testimonials for a second with sound. Because without sound, we wouldn't be going very far.
I like to give up because it's a good idea. It's the perfect idea to make kids do their things, their chores.
Yeah, I think it is a pretty cool thing since we need to know first of all, how to earn money and to try working and earning them and not just having money just from our parents. I think that will build us as people.
As for me, I think it's an amazing idea because not a lot of kids are going to be more responsible and more independent, and that's a great way to learn and to be actually more conscious of how we spend money and what to do and what not to do. Because at our age, it's kind of difficult to know how to act because we're not mature enough yet, I guess. And having to do some chores or some things to actually earn money and have your own money, I think that's always great.
This is in Kosovo, by the way.
First
9 years old.
Help my family and save some for my study when I grow up. And that's all. And all I want to do is help people.
Well, I'd probably invest in something to make even more money. Because if you have 1 million gift, you're probably gonna end up spending it in 1 year or so. And if you invest in something, you're just gonna get a constant flow of gift, which results in more money. And everybody likes that.
And they have not been scripted. That's the most beautiful way. It was totally improvised, so it was awesome. So that happened from the first test we did in Kosovo, and now we're heading towards the next step, which is to get 10,000 people or 10,000 kids up to the million down the road. So this is the Minister of Innovation. By the way, the US, in the first 2 weeks of this year, 4 states in the US passed bills stating that financial literacy was mandatory in school. So it shows you the trends on which we must embark. And that's what, this kind of platform can allow at scale. That's the kind of conversation that allows us today. So we have conversation with the CRO of Aviva, who told us that they have 100 billion available that is not assigned to anybody on earth, people that died or stuff like that, and they want to allocate that to that kind of initiative. So for us to scale, it's perfect because they're looking for global impact, not just like a tiny country. And so this way we can really do our job worldwide. So where are we now? We've done the MVP, now we're getting onto the pilots in the UK, and then we would start by the end of this year targeting 1 million users and then grow from there. So this is me with the Prime Minister of Kosovo, who gave us their total support and official one at that. So since then, we started working with UNICEF and USA and a few other big entities to roll it out in Kosovo. The way we do it is we go into a school, we provide the financial literacy curriculum, we provide a QR code, and then if the kids have phones, then they use these QR codes to access their account. If they don't, then we put tablets in the ecosystem. And how it works technically, well, Ethereum, EOS, etc. We can talk about that at another moment. And then we, in our first pilots, what we do is identifying the different KPIs related with what is the behavior of money, how does it work, where does it go. I was with someone of Europe this morning, who was telling me that they give money to people, but they don't know where it goes. So they give it to Germany, and Germany doesn't know how they spend the money. So here we're going to have a whole traceability and knowing what happens and where it goes and how is it reinvested, how does it get interest from an investment, and then how that interest grows, etc. So it's going to be very interesting, and the behavior related with what the kids are doing with it, which allows us at the end to create really, again, real positive economies that are based on gift, on empathy, on compassion, but more importantly, that are growing, and in turn can allow the financing of our the sensor for the air and many other things that can create oasis of SDG related sensors, IoTs, and different solutions in the different schools. And in turn, these economies empower these things, and they can pay for the different activities for the kids. And yeah, so just to give you an idea for a pilot like the one in Kosovo, we have a local setup and customization for the country, and then the customization of the Aflatun program, and then what we call the Kids Research Fund, which is a fund to help kids that do not receive pocket money. And so we offer to companies so we have already Aviva, Inaspa, we have Ashoka as well, that is working with us, Novartis. So these guys put money here to help kids learn to whether educate themselves, whether to earn money and then to trade it and so on and so forth, which is in turn what will prepare their clients down the road. So it is about alignment at all levels between the core interest of a brand and the core interest of the kids, always in an idea of gifting. All that thanks to the blockchain, which is awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we're coming to the home stretch, and we're gonna just have 2 short talks. And after that, we're gonna invite anyone else who has a project to come up and just say 1 minute about their project. So right now, I'm gonna invite Nadia Ian of Edge Riders up to speak about her project. Thank you.
Okay, so many years ago, I took a short trip to South Africa. I wanted to understand how activists in the anti-apartheid movement went about tackling this issue that was overwhelming, where you're being attacked from many different directions, and how do you begin to do this? How do you sustain a movement for 40 years? How do you maintain, how do you manage yourself? How do you keep it together a long time? And I came away with two pieces of wisdom that I carry with me. And the first was, you have to find ways to have people look in the same direction for a long minute, and keep them there. Build trust long enough for things to evolve at the pace of human relationships. And the second was, you have to make your spaces for possible redemption. 2 pieces of knowledge. And so Edge Riders is really simple. That's what it does. There's an online platform. People show up. They share firsthand. Introduce themselves, and they share firsthand experiences of working on something that matters to them, an issue. And then there are community managers that use that information to connect people in conversations relevant to them. Why? Because, first of all, when every packet is a potential carrier of a lie, how do you know what is really happening? How do you see with eyes that are bigger than yourself? You need other people, right? So you share your information, and then we have tools of community managers to help us get a bigger picture of a problem space or a solution space or an issue like healthcare. How to fix healthcare as the costs of healthcare are rising faster than GDP. Massive issues. How do you even begin? You can be working on your own small project, but if you really care, how do you level up? Second, you know, what is possible to be done realistically? What are we learning from what people are already doing? What has failed in the past? What seems to be promising? Why does it fail? Right? And use this as knowledge, because this is one of the things that makes humans unusually successful as a species, is the capacity to learn, to transmit knowledge socially. And part of this is in language. It's also in relationships. Third is, who can you do this with? So, what reality looks like. You have an understanding of what can be done. Then the question is who to work with. How are your projects complementary? Where are they competing with each other? Where does it make sense to work together? Where does it make sense to stay in your lane? And to do this, we use semantic social networks to figure out where do there seem to be higher level areas that people can be working on. And then we do stuff like set up secular monastic orders for people to be able to go to a space, live there, work there together for a year. Why? Because there's a reason why the Catholic Church is so powerful and so wealthy. Essentially, that is what it was. You had these infrastructures where people were staying together for a long enough period of time. You had protocols and ways for them to be together and work together, be productive, with a higher motivation without going crazy. And you had a lot of results of this, like in the industrial, innovation in how we do agriculture, genetics, so on and so forth. Super simple idea. So that's what we're doing with this NGI, Next Generation Internet Initiative, and the project that we're working together is hosting a conversation. People come in, we see what you're doing, and then we do a process of trying to match make people across projects and contexts. And then maybe also help with the process of taking them from conversations to a concrete collaboration, a concrete proposal written, a concrete project up and running. And the bigger picture is that over time, build a dense network of people who are doing meaningful things at a large enough scale that maybe we can get to a critical mass of people looking in the same direction for a minute. So if you want to be pinged when it's up and running, or if you have more questions for me, you can just email Nadia at edriders.eu or ping the edriders Twitter account saying, Nadia, get in touch. That's it. Thank you.
All right, we're gonna have one more speaker before we have these really short talks, and that is gonna be Sam Butler of the CrowdFact Project. Sam has been working with me for about 8 weeks almost now, and are you gonna use a slide?
No. I think following Nadia's example, we're going to show the room how some millennials can disengage from the screens and have a human-to-human presentation. You know, there's hope. Yeah, so as David mentioned, I'm working for Bridget, and I'm running the CrowdFact vertical, or the CrowdFact use case, which is essentially using this browser annotation tool to identify and flag misinformation and fake news, which is then visible to the whole community. So say you're reading a New York Times article, and you see something in it that just doesn't sit right based on research that you've done. And you can cite it. You can cite something to refute that. So now what you can do with our tool is you can highlight that piece of content that you know isn't quite true. And you can directly link it to a source that refutes it. And then everybody else who's viewing that content can see the fact check that you made, and they can go and become better informed themselves on that issue without having to rely on a publisher or a single writer's perspective as a single source of truth. Why is this really important? Think about Facebook, which is almost producing a new education curriculum for us. It's where a lot of us get informed. There's probably 10 million more people joining the platform every month. You have probably a static group of 10 to 30,000 moderators. Just doesn't work. You have millions and millions of more people sharing more content. You need to get a sense of what is true, what is valid. You know, what is the real BBC URL? What is bbc.cam? And whatever fake news website you can spin off of that, to make sure that what we're being presented and what we're being shared with is an objective, valid perspective of the world. So the way we're doing that is by integrating machine learning algorithms with our work. So suddenly, you take this crowdsourced fact-checking model as a way to verify the activity and prevent the bad actor problems that can come from this type of technology. You can suddenly use algorithms to analyze the information about people's activity. You can analyze the original article and content in question. You can analyze the sources that they link to either support or refute the original claims. And then you can get a sense of the relative validity of the activity that's being done, and you can take further steps from there. For example, you could choose to publicly display that, or if it seems to be BS, and somebody tried to take something that was true and refute it by linking to a fake news website, maybe you could hold off on that and then send it to a human moderator for further evaluation to determine the next steps. So I think this is a really robust solution, in particular, because you think about the true danger of misinformation is just people seeing it. If nobody sees misinformation, if it has 0 views, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. You can go on and be happy. It doesn't matter. As more and more people encounter misinformation, it becomes more and more dangerous. And yet with crowdsourced fact checking, as more and more people see that misinformation, more and more people have an opportunity to correct it for the community. So as the nature of the problem grows, the potential of the solution scales in proportion. That's why I think it's really powerful and really robust, in contrast to something like Facebook has now, which again, 10 million new users per month and a static group of moderators. That's just, it doesn't work. The math doesn't add up. So with all that said, what can tie this together to prevent the bad actor problem, prevent the misuse of this technology, in our opinion, is machine learning, and the ability to analyze the information that's being done, and again, fact check the fact check, so to speak. Now, this brings another huge question to the forefront. I'm going to get to the point here, and I would love all of your opinions. I'd love for you to come up talking about this, which is, how are we supposed to know what is true or what is relatively more true when we're fact checking fact checks? You have a complex issue like immigration reform. You have a perspective from the BBC, a perspective from The Economist, a perspective from CNN, a perspective of Fox News. How are you supposed to weight those different sources according to which is more or less true? How can you do that? At the end of the day, it comes down to maybe my preferences, maybe David's preferences of anybody who's in charge of creating this algorithm. And I see a lot of danger and a lot of responsibility in that. So I'm very eager to solicit negative feedback and really explore what a real solution there is in terms of how to responsibly and beneficially design this type of technology. So again, I'll leave it at that. The question, how can we determine what, or how can we try to approximate what the truth is in this very complex world? How can we build our technology to help us better access that? If you have any thoughts, please come find me. That's it.
All right. That was a lot. Is there anyone here? Oh, okay. We've had to change.
Yeah. I think we have to round it up,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So, but if anybody has like an opportunity or something they should talk about, I invite you to a network drink. I guess we're all thirsty a little bit and a little bit hungry, but let's round it up for tonight because we still have to go to the center, right? So, oh yeah, there we go. So, let's have a brief chat with each other. I invite you to another network event here, and I want to thank you for this evening. I want to thank David for coming, Arnold and Paul for coming, and everybody who's here tonight. Let's spread the word and let's get this innovation on the go.
Yeah. And thanks to all of you who tuned in to this live cast. Really appreciate it. And just remember to use #overweb. Signing out, David Benjamin.